For me, I think the biggest thing that football taught me was how to overcome adversity.
At some point in your life, you're going to have some tough times.
You have to have that next play mentality.
That cohesiveness and that working together, that's really something special that you can't get in a lot of other areas.
When you practice that and you live that in other phases of your life, it becomes second nature because all you know how to do is fight.
It's not an easy game. If it were easy, everyone would do it.
You start to appreciate the smaller contributions that people make. You don't just look at the big one because you knew it took 6 or 7 other guys who are unsung.
And you can't take shortcuts and be successful.
Doing what they do to make it possible for the guy getting the press clippings or whatever it might be.
In this game, whether it's as a coach or a player.
So I would certainly say that you definitely got a very quick lesson in how to overcome adversity playing football.
Welcome to another edition of Talking Ball with the Czar. I'm Emory Hunt, the Czar of the Playbook, here on the campus of Guilford College, home of the Quakers, with head football coach Chris Rusiewicz. Coach, appreciate you taking time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming.
I like your mindset, man. You have a winning attitude. And the thing is, when you first got here, this opportunity opened up, the Quakers were coming off an 0-10 season. And this probably be a position where a lot of guys would have passed it up and like, you know what, I'll wait for another opportunity. What made this the ideal spot, and why were you willing to take on the challenge?
There's a lot of reasons behind that. When at the end of my career as a defensive coordinator and associate head coach at Ursinus, I was coming to a point where I started interviewing for head coaching jobs at different areas, obviously up from my area. When Guilford was recommended, we had a guy on staff who coached here in the past, and he said to me, I know the track record at Guilford College is not really where it is, but I can tell you in my 2 years of experience there, it's got opportunity to really flourish in a lot of ways. It's a good academic school. I mean, he really just started to tell me a little bit about the place. I didn't know much about it at all. So when I inquired about it and had some mutual interest in return, I did some general research on the place and realized that the selling points for us as a football coach, and have always been for me as a football coach, are academic prestige of an institution. So when I looked at the Guilford College, I thought it had that. It had something I could sell. Being non-football scholarship, non-athletic scholarship, I had to be able to give something to every one of our recruits and student athletes, which was a good education. So I think that was one of the draws for me over a lot of other places that I did interview at and even been offered some jobs at. The second thing was the location. I mean, finding a place that, one, was surrounded by good football to recruit good student athletes, but also in a good environment for opportunities for our kids to enjoy life internally, externally, but also internships and jobs and just all those types of things. And a lot of athletes now with the sport management major coming into place, it's nice to have the ACC office here in Greensboro. So I think there was a lot of that came into play for me too, and knowing that I could sell those two things and and recruit well. And obviously being a coach, and any coach knows this, recruiting is a big part of our success. And then the last piece of it, which I tell our recruits, and as well as everyone I was looking at the process, was winning and playing and all those things were important. But those two key components were going to be the track to our success on the field. And when I came down and looked at our facilities, and I looked at the success of our other major sports and even some of our minor sports, including golf and basketball and something, and I thought, okay, there's other people having success, which means there needs to be some type of support internally and externally and administratively. So when I really put it all together, I thought it was a place that I could come and reach success. I didn't think it would happen maybe as quickly as we did. I thought it would take more time, as everybody always says, 4 or 5 years to rebuild a program. But I think we came in with a mindset of refocusing a program rather than rebuilding a program. And with that in mind, it kind of caught on. And I think it really kind of helped flourish. And I know there are a couple mentors of mine that told me I was probably taking a bad situation. It could be a career breaker. But at the same time, I look at it was an opportunity, just like I tell all of our guys, face adverse situations and thrive, and it just makes you feel that much better. And I thought we did a great job with our staff and recruits to getting it to where it is.
You kind of alluded to it with your answer to my first question, Coach, but building a program is a process, and a lot of people think it's easy. They think it's just about on the field, but what really goes into building a football program?
Well, as I said in my last answer, we didn't really come in with a mindset to rebuild because we wanted to look out for the current players in the program, especially those rising seniors that year, because I think it was important for them to have an opportunity to compete and play at a high level. So we really just went with the refocusing piece, which is very similar, but the difference is getting them to buy into the new culture of, let's be real, academics, going to class, doing your work, networking, asking questions, and thriving in the classroom and rising the GPA. I think that was one of the key focuses we focused on. And then the second thing was getting involved with the community, focusing on the community internally and externally, doing more community service. Our first year and every year since, we've been averaging a little over 1,000 hours of community service as a program internally and externally in Greensboro. And I think that's really just made us different people in a sense that, one, knowing that hard work pays off and giving back pays off. And all that, to me, and I tell this people all the time, that if you take all three of those things, you succeed in the classroom, you succeed in the community, and you succeed in the football field, if two of them are going well, the chances are the third one's going to go well too. But if you start to fail at one of them, it's going to start failing in every way. So we really focused on those things and just turning it around with one piece at a time, especially in off season, because obviously with our level of football, we don't have as much of hands-on with our guys football related in the off season. We have to do more hands-on through community service, which we're allowed to do, hands-on with their academic mentoring. So by doing that, we built the relationships, we built bonds, we built mentorships, and then vice versa, the communication key happened. So we really bonded as a program that off season and structured a culture around all the good things that we need to be doing, like I said, academically and in the community. And I think even in that first year we went 2-8, there was definitely signs of future success to come. And then of course the next year we went 5-5, and you could just see that our guys were had the will to win and had the will to succeed and how to face adversity, and we taught them all those things. And we're always just trying to be positive. I think in society, you can see it now, society is just so negative, especially in the world of sports. So I think it was just to make them understand that you're good people outside of just a football player. You can thrive in so many other areas. So really the refocusing for us was to get them to understand they're human beings, they're valuable to themselves, to their families, to our program, to our school, and get them to understand that they're not beat up. As I told them one time, you're not beat up abused puppy dogs. We're not just going to use and abuse you. You're humans. We're going to care for you. We're going to take care. And by doing that, you could see their hard work and the return on what they did for us when we asked them to do things. When it turned onto the football field, it really thrived in so many ways. And then, of course, our talent level started to rise through recruiting when you had a culture set, when recruits came on campus and saw the things that we were doing and the way people were speaking about our program, the players, the faculty, the staff. People were excited about the new culture. And of course, people that bought into that culture found it the right fit, and it's really kind of thrived for us. And I think that's why the turnaround happened more quickly, because we didn't rebuild, we more or less just refocused what we had.
Coach, you hear the saying all the time, defense wins championships, and I'm pretty sure you could make a case for it, I guess. But we're both offense guys, both played offense. But you have a unique history. You played offense, but you were a defensive coordinator. But how did, let's say, playing offense formulate your approach to defense, and how can taking an offensive approach to an offensive wins championships can be beneficial to a program?
Well, and I'll tell a quick story of how it happened, but I was, like I said, an offensive player, running back. I loved offense my whole career, and the first opportunity I got to coach, the head coach at the school basically said to me, I want to bring you on as a defensive staff member because, one, I don't have any offensive staff positions available, but it would also be interesting to have an offensive perspective. And I thought, it kind of made sense. I called my dad and I said, I don't know if I want to take this job. I don't really like defense, but he said basically, don't be an idiot. You get your foot in the door and go with it. I did, and from that day on, I've coached defense. I love defense just as much. I think there's just totally a difference between the two. Defense is more of an attitude, an effort type deal, whereas offense is more of a smart, schematic, and knowing what you need to do. So there really are two different approaches with that. And I mean, the statement is as now as a head coach, you see there's merit to both. Obviously, if you shut every team out, you'll never lose a football game. But if you outscore your opponent, you'll never lose a football game. So I think that one of the things that we have done, I think, well here is try to work together with that in mind. We going into games with an idea of, all right, here we are. We're going to play the best defense we can, but they're a very good offense, so we're going to need to be able to put some more points up, or ball control, or score quickly, or whatever it may be. So I think with that in mind, the offense here for us has always outshined the defense only because of the fact that we've had so much success offensively, not because our defense has not been very good. But I think that goes true for anywhere. I think if somebody's offense is thriving, it's always going to be overlook a defense, because most people, let's be real, they always say offense puts fans in the seats. I think that's true with anything. People want to know what your offense is doing. How many points did you score? I mean, I've been in situations where you win. We've won football games, not necessarily here, but in other places where we won a game one time, I think 59-56, and everybody thought it was like the greatest game ever, when really as a defensive coordinator I felt awful because I gave it 50. So so when you ask that question of, I think they both got to work hand in hand with one another, with really the deciding factor, and you didn't ask this, but it's the special units of being that deciding factor in a football game, because defense and offense is really about field position, and I think you need a good offense to change the field position with moving the chains, and you need a defense to stop the field position, where special teams can make the biggest difference with that. So based on your question, I mean, I think they're both equally important. I think being an offensive player and understanding the value of that, and my love for that as a player, when I became a head coach, obviously I was a defensive-minded guy for my entire career, 10 years, that it allowed me to bring back that passion, and allowed me to help our young staff at the time that I brought in to develop a new offensive structure based on a structure that I already had in place for defense. So it's just neat to now see it both thriving with the same general concepts and mentality and using the same terminology, and it's been a lot of fun, but I think they work hand in hand, and I think that they're both just as equal to winning championships.
I'm glad you brought up special teams, because I think that's like the big equalizer, because they take from both. There's a defensive side of the special teams and an offensive side of the special teams. Do you think that's the biggest key in like you mentioned, the quiet success of a football team is tethered to these special teams units?
Yeah, and I think the proof behind that is as a football fan, people that watch the game on TV, the moment that, especially during the Super Bowl, the moment that people usually go to get up to get something to eat or use the restroom is during the punt period, or during a kickoff, or during a special teams period, even more so than some of the commercials, because they think, oh, it's just a guarantee, or it really is no impact in the game. But really, that's where you see the biggest impact, because it takes one bad special teams play to really, maybe in some cases, determine the outcome of a football game. And I think that we've done a really nice job here with our coaches, and our special teams coaches have done a really nice job of putting an emphasis that where a lot of our starters on both sides of the ball try to compete to get on those special units, because they do understand the value of the difference in a football game that can make.
One of the staple questions I always ask coaches about philosophy, because I'm big on picking successful guys' brains and see what makes them tick, why they are successful. So what will be a big piece of your philosophy that makes you so successful here at Guilford?
And it's funny you asked that, because I was just talking to one of my seniors who's getting ready to graduate, wants to get into coaching, and he said he was interviewing for a job, and somebody asked him that question. He really wasn't sure how to answer it. Most coaches, that's a tough question, but I always told him the same thing I'll tell you. I think there's two different answers to that. There's your philosophy in terms of schematics, Xing and O'ing on offense, defense, and special teams. But then there's your philosophy on how you manage an actual program and dealing with people. And I think that, obviously, from the head coaching perspective, the philosophy is more of that. One thing that we really structured our program on is what we call, and we actually just did it, we're doing a huge piece on this right now in our off season, where we're calling it basically our attitude. We're adjusting our attitude, and with that, there's basically six components to it. One of them is love, which is basically our commitment to the program, commitment to one another, coaches to coaches, players to coaches, players to players, and that true love and passion for each other, and doing anything you can for that. So, that kind of goes into, and that's probably the most important piece in terms of what we do, showing we care. The whole cliche meaning of they don't know how much you know until they know how much you care, and it is so true. And I said that a little bit earlier in another question you had about how we had to change and refocus the culture based off of that. So I think now our players really do understand, and it takes more time for freshmen to understand it, but the offseason is a really good time to do that with the amount of time we try to spend with community service. But love is key. Having passion, having pride in what we do, trying to get them to understand. One of the things I first said when I first arrived here was we're all walking around with our slumps, our chests slumped down, heads down. We don't want to look at anybody because we're not proud of what we do here. And by the time that ended that offseason, our guys were chest out, pumped up, looking around, proud to be wearing Guilford. So I think, having that pride in what we do, discipline. Everybody talks about discipline, and we talk about that too, and how that's going to be a life-changing, moment for them when they can understand that doing things right all the time, and if they don't know what's right, getting help and figuring out what that is. So I think those were huge components to our attitude. I mean, even nowadays with communication, every coach in America is starting to think about communication, because back when I first started, there wasn't the texting and the emailing and these things. So the line of communication has changed, and we're trying to educate our guys, and our program and our philosophy is communication, verbal communication is important, but everybody, finds a way to do that. But even body language. I mean, we're even trying to educate on just body language alone in terms of how you carry yourself, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the field, if you drop a pass. I mean, what's your reaction to that? So I think that, when you embody, and I'm looking at the sheet over here to make sure I cover it all, but you look at love and you look at effort and pride and discipline and communication. I mean, those are 5 of our 6 components. And then the last one was toughness. Nowadays in society, young men don't take coaching the way they used to. And so finding new ways to make them understand that we, care about you, and when we coach you, it's to make you better. So when you compile all those into one thing, it comes back to what we call our attitude. And that generally takes care of our philosophy on the field, off the field, in the community, and everything we do. And we evaluate our kids off of that every single day to make sure they're on board with what we're trying to accomplish here. XO philosophy, I think it's very simple. We want to win, and we want to score more points than our opponent, and I think that's the easiest way to say it. But that's a whole nother question. But in terms of my actual philosophy, it goes off of this new approach of attitude, which we've always been doing, but now we finally put it in print, and we've been teaching it to our team throughout this offseason.
Do you find yourself, because you always hear people say, the team takes on the personality of the head coach, and I wanted to ask an actual head coach, when you first got here, did you start to see where the team was initially, and then at what point did you see the light start to come on to where they started to do exactly what you were trying to say earlier?
It is actually funny you say that, because I do think that is true, and I say it to the positional coaches too, that they take on their personality, their positional coach as well. And I think where the light finally clicked for me was you started to see players and coaches buy into this whole process along the way, where when you heard them talking to recruits, or you heard them talking to each other, or faculty members, or getting in front of the room and talking to a group of the team or whoever, sometimes they would speak your exact language. And it was like they're believing it now. It's clicking. And I think that is so important. I have coaches on staff now that have been players and now recycled into coaches on staff. And it's amazing even to hear some of them talk about their overall experiences in the program, but from the perspective of where they are today as a coach, and the beliefs and the philosophies that they have share very similar to what we refocused when we got here. So I think you can see it, and it makes me feel good, but it makes, I think, our program know it's going in the right direction and going to continue to go in the right direction as long as we continue to believe in the things that we've been preaching since we arrived.
I can tell you have a lot of passion, Coach, and you need that to have the success you had as a player and also as a coach. So you obviously have a love for the game. What would you say you love most about the game of football? I
think it's the relationships, and I think the Xing and O'ing obviously is part of the game, and even when we interview staff members or potential staff members, the X and O'ing piece is almost irrelevant because we can teach that. That passion key is so important to becoming in this profession, because so many people think it is just about X's and O's, but I think the relationship piece is very simple, where you bring so many young men and staff from all different walks of life for one common purpose, and it all starts with getting to know who they are, their families. It all starts with recruiting, getting to know people. Even some of those people break your hearts and tell you no. But I think the passion is just the amount of people in your life that you get to build those things off of. And then, of course, when you have these relationships and you have these bonds, and I know it's not a friendship, it's not family, it's just a different bond, and you only know that bond as a player or as a coach because it's different than almost any other sport or profession you could possibly have, where you got these guys working together, but then you see them perform or do what you're asking them to do, and they have success, and you can see like it click. And there's probably not a better feeling in the world other than having your own children do it, where you see them start having the success and seeing it pay off. So I think the passion, and every morning I get to wake up and know that I can make an impact in someone's life with relationships is just huge and awesome.
You look at nowadays, students have a lot of options as far as picking a program. Back in the day, it used to be 9 programs you knew about, and you figured everything else out when it was time to go to class or go to school. But now everyone has a lot of access to many different places. So if I was to be a high school senior again, and you're sitting there talking to a senior prospect, what would a student athlete gain from coming to Guilford? Why would they choose Guilford over anywhere else?
I think I said this in one of my earlier answers. You know, one of the things that we recruit off of here is we want the right people here, you know, and it's not for everybody, and every school's not for everybody. But we're looking for people that are looking for the right fit academically, looking for a good education, the opportunity to graduate in 4 years. Obviously, a lot of programs now are, you know, in school for 5 or 6 years, and you know, we're looking for you to come in, get you for 4 years, and get you on with your life. So, guys that are going to attack the classroom and understand the value behind that, not just looking for that football experience, but are going to get rewarded for that at the end. You know, obviously, we sell Greensboro, we sell our campus and where it is and what it has to offer, because it's in a city, but you know, once you look at Guilford, whether you look on Google Maps or not, you'll see it has 250 plus acres of woods surrounding it. So it's kind of in a different, unique environment, which is interesting. So I think we sell those two things very key. And the only way to really get a vibe on that is you got to visit. I mean, we tell that to people all the time. You don't buy a home in an area or buy a car without testing. You don't make an investment like that without seeing it. And it's interesting, even for me when I interviewed, you know, getting to the campus is so much different than just seeing pictures of it. And, you know, so we try to sell that to, you know, come and check us out. And most of the time when people leave here, the academic and the atmosphere of the school sell itself. The football piece, it was hard to sell early on, but the opportunity to compete and win, but also play early. You know, we don't redshirt here. A lot of programs out there, that's, you know this, they see it on ESPN, and, you know, redshirt sounds cool, this sounds cool. The reality of it is walk-on sounds cool, but the reality is go where it's the right fit in those first two things, a right fit academically, a right fit where you can fit in with the community. And if you find the right fit and there's a football program to go with it, it's going to be the greatest experience of your life. And I think those that make it through our program will look back on that as we've had guys turn down scholarships. We've had guys turn down walk-ons and have went to other programs and transferred back from high-level programs because it clicked later on of what I've been trying to sell to them all along was the academic and the atmosphere, community base of the institution are more important than that football piece. Because if you can play the football game, I mean, every program, I don't care if you're Alabama or here, you play with the same amount of officials, you play on the same size field, and when you're playing, you don't care how many people are watching you. You know, it's a reality of just playing the game. And if you're not playing, you know, then what are you doing? You know, so getting the opportunity to do those things has been our selling point all along and has been helped us grow this program with the right recruits.
Well, I took a quick tour around campus, finding a parking spot, but you see all the beautiful buildings, nice sized campus. I've been impressed with the football program, which is why I'm here talking to you, and I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with me.
Great. I thank you. Appreciate you taking the time coming down.
Oh, no problem.
Thank
and we wish you the best luck this season.
Appreciate it.
Keep
Thank
scoring
you.
points.
That's right. Thank you.